Drink with James, episode 166. I am back in the office. I wish I could have done that intro in French as I just got back from Paris, but I literally don't speak a single word of French. I mean, I say bonjour like that. I'm just like bonjour. I don't even try with the accent. I do like how, you'll walk into a shop in Paris and look, I don't think I scream American in the way I look. I think actually most people think I'm British for some reason. Maybe it's the bad teeth. I'm just kidding, my teeth are great. They're just falling out of my mouth. But so like, I'll walk in the shop, they start speaking French to me, I'll be like, oh, I'm so sorry, I don't speak a word of French. And then they're like, you're an American? I'm like, no, excuse me, I'm not an American. I'm from New York City. And they lose their mind. They love it. The Parisians love New Yorkers. So hot tip, if you're traveling to France and you want to avoid anti-American sentiment, just tell them you're from New York. Every Parisian secretly wants to live in New York in the same way that most New Yorkers secretly want to live in Paris. It's funny how you can see how the internet, Instagram, and just globalization is changing the world so quickly. Like all of the new hot shit, cool restaurants in Paris are full of essentially just New Yorkers and people from LA. Like it's just Americans. But they look like restaurants in New York. Like, a traditional French place doesn't have a bar in it. They all kind of look the same, but like from the music to the food and the cocktails and the vibe, like any kind of new hip hipster place in Paris just feels exactly like it's out of New York, which is kind of funny and kind of sad. I find myself like, while Instagram has been amazing for a lot of things, I think that it has made traveling less exciting sometimes, because when you go to a place, you've already seen it so many times that it either can't live up to the photos or it just doesn't feel as like new. I think that's why I was so excited about or why I was so like engaged when I was in Bangladesh, because everything felt so new and like literally everything was different. And not only just like because everything was different there. I mean, things in Paris are quite different than they are here. It's just that you're not inundated with that content all the time. Like on my Instagram feed, I probably have somebody in Paris every week that I follow. Like somebody is there. And so like every week I'm seeing photos from that, and it just makes it a little like less special. We just had an employee who got back from Capri, and she was kind of like, I didn't really like it. One, I think I personally am like also, you guys know I don't like Positano. I don't have to fucking bring that up again. But I'm also like not a Capri fan, because like I don't think an island should have a Chanel and a Saint Laurent on it. Like that's just, to me, doesn't say like relaxing island vacation. But she was also like, I felt like I was in like influencer Disneyland the whole time. And she went somewhere else in Italy and much preferred it because it felt a little more secret, a little more fresh and new. And I will bang this drum over and over and over again. If you are in a position as an influencer to travel and to be able to do that and as part of your job, and you get to pick those locations, I just implore you to try something new. We've all seen Morocco, we've all seen Positano, we've all seen Paris. Like we don't really need to see it again. And if your job is inspiring, educating, entertaining, it's a lot easier if you go someplace totally new. And I think Instagram would be a more interesting place if people that had the ability to travel anywhere that they wanted went to new places, went to countries that don't get as much coverage, don't get as much tourism dollars, and could use a little bit more attention. Like, let's ruin somewhere else. I don't know what we should ruin next. Scottish Highlands, I don't fucking know. But let's find it, let's ruin it, and I can complain about something other than the Italian coast. Question number 1. This is a story that I hope we're going to track as it progresses and as it comes to some sort of solution. I'm not going to give the name, but an influencer who we all know and love got a cease and desist from a manufacturer who created a garment that was knocked off, and the influencer was promoting the knockoff, and the manufacturer told her to remove all of the content that she had ever posted about that knockoff. It's something she kind of consistently talked about, to remove all of that content from blog, Instagram, stories, everything, and then demanded the affiliate revenue that she made off selling the fake garment. The question is, what is an influencer's responsibility to research whether something is a knockoff, and should influencers be promoting knockoffs? Now, in this specific story that we're talking about, I have never heard of a brand suing an influencer to try and get the affiliate revenue back from them. I am not a legal scholar, but I don't think that they are going to win that case. I'm not even sure that they can force you to take down a post about a product that is a knockoff. The beef is with the company that knocked it off, not necessarily with the person that promoted it. But I think it does bring up a kind of two interesting questions for influencers. One is a brand safety question, right? Of just like, do you know the partners that you are working for? You know, you are, in the same way that brands are doing a lot of research now on influencers to make sure that they are brand safe, because that brand is giving the influencer their brand to talk about. It's kind of saying, okay, I'm handing this over to you, you kind of tell our story. That's a scary thing for a brand. As an influencer, you're doing the same thing, especially if you're an influencer who is established, you have a bit of a following, and it's a smaller emerging brand. In a lot of ways, you have more brand equity than that startup does. And so it's a big thing that you're doing to promote that brand. And I think as an influencer, you have to do a little bit of research and understand if that brand aligns with your values, if it's a company that you want to work with, because in the same way that this can blow up in the face of a brand when an influencer does something unethical, same thing can happen for an influencer. You know, if you are working with a company and you've been promoting them and you're, you know, one of their long-term ambassadors, and then you find out that they make all of the, you know, uniforms for ICE officers, like, your audience may struggle with that, and you may and probably will be held responsible for supporting an organization that doesn't coincide with your beliefs. This is happening a lot more with influencers that care about the environment and being eco-friendly. You know, companies are the biggest abusers of the environment, and it is hard for some influencers to align their kind of eco-activism with shopping at Zara, right? Because, you know, how much of Zara ends up in a landfill eventually? Probably 98% of it. It's kind of disposable clothing by nature, so nobody's passing down their Zara shirt to their daughter, being like, I wore this, you know, whatever. As an influencer, it is worth you looking into your brand partners to understand, do my values align, right? That is something worth doing. The other thing is just like, should you be promoting knockoffs, right? Like, if you have ever had something stolen from you, an idea or a design, or someone's plagiarized you, it is a really gross feeling. It sucks, especially when it's a massive organization that you can't fight, especially if you haven't done the things you should have done, like trademark something or whatever it might be, patent your idea. You know, one of the side effects of living in a country that is pro-business is that it is really hard for an individual to protect themselves against a business. And if somebody steals your idea and they are Zara or some massive organization, there's really not much you can do to get back at them. And I think as an influencer, if you are someone that supports fast fashion, those brands are destroying small designers, they're destroying artists' lives. Like they literally are stealing money from those places. And it may not feel like that. It may not feel like you're complicit in that, but I think you absolutely are. And if you look at a Venn diagram and you say like, this is a Celine customer and this is a Zara customer, is there any overlap? Probably not a lot. I think the people that can afford, to shop at Celine on the regular, I'm talking old Celine, not new Celine, which is obviously total trash. The people that could afford that aren't probably rolling into Zara to buy the knockoffs. But if you're a fashion style blogger and all of this creativity is coming from a small group of people, and then that is being ripped off, it will eventually probably get more and more difficult for those companies to be viable and to have businesses. And so creativity will just continue to get stifled, and clothes will go the same way as music and everything else, and it'll be controlled by algorithms, and it will just start to get really boring because there won't be much business in creativity because that creativity will just get stolen. And I think, you have to think as an influencer, what is my stand on supporting companies that are stealing from artists? Even if Zara and Celine customers don't overlap, Zara is stealing from these companies, and they're stealing from, what fashion designers are at their best, which is artists. They're stealing from them. And they're taking their art which may be the culmination of decades of craft and inspiration and all of that, and they're just fucking stealing it and slapping a $29.99 tag on it, and everyone is just gobbling it up. And it's not as pervasive in the men's space because they just, menswear is just so different. So like I can't shop at, I can't buy Tom Brown knockoffs. It just doesn't exist because there's not a business in that. So it's easier for me to sit here and be like, I don't shop at Zara. I don't shop at any fast fashion, because fast fashion for men, I think, is very different. And I obviously wear a suit every day, so it makes it exceedingly difficult. But I do think you have to think about where you stand on these things and try and stick to some sort of philosophy, and whatever that might be. So we're going to watch what happens with the influencer and her cease and desist. If this becomes a more common thing, it's going to shake the industry up quite a bit. If designers start coming after the influencers who are posting the knockoffs. Question number 2 is about swipe ups. It's kind of a 2-part question. 1, should I buy followers if I'm close to 10Ks to get the swipe up? And 2, is the swipe up really that effective? Is it going to really be a game changer? So let me answer part 2 first. On average, we see about 5% of a person's following watching their story. And when they post a story with a swipe up, we see about 1% of that. For example, if you've got 100,000 followers, you might have 5,000 people that see your story and 50 might swipe up. So swipe up is not driving a massive amount of traffic in general. There is certainly a convenience factor to it, but it's not like we're seeing swipe ups driving tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of visits and huge percentages of someone's view of who's viewing it. So in general, they're not massively effective. Now, again, there is a convenience part to it. Part 2 is, should I buy followers to get the swipe up? No. You shouldn't. You should never buy followers. I think obviously you guys know that I'm not pro buying followers. We were the first company to come out with a tool to help detect people that were buying followers. It's been a big part of our business. It continues to be a huge part of our business. We are incredibly focused on making sure we reward influencers who have built an organic following. Now, I do know people who have bought followers to get the swipe up. They weren't actually influencers, and so they were just like, screw it, I want the swipe up, I'm gonna buy these followers. I think it feels like in the short term, it would be worth it, but let's say, I think the person who asked the question's at about 5,000 followers, so now and what she was saying was like, I don't have a huge amount of followers, but my account is growing, people are really engaged, my audience is asking for swipe ups, I'm getting reposted by brands, like all in all, things are going well for this influencer. And it's like, I just want the swipe up, should I just buy it? But if you did that, now half your following is not real. And I'm not, I don't think that does good things for the algorithm now because your percentage rate looks so much smaller. Your percentage, your engagement percentage, again, doesn't look as good for brands who are evaluating you. And even with hiding likes, brands are going to be able to find out how many likes someone is getting. So don't think that just hiding likes means brands are never going to see how many likes you get. They will. We will still see it. So our clients will still see what engagement you're getting. But more than that, it creates a kind of like debt in your account, right? Like it's just this dead weight that you're gonna carry around with you. And while buying 5,000 followers doesn't really matter once you get to, if you get to 300K, when you're below 20 or 25 or even 50K, it will still be a large percentage of your following that is fake. And you would be tempted to maybe charge brands based on your following count, right? And so now you're defrauding brands. You're charging them for followers that you don't really have. The way your contemporaries and other influencers look at you is going to change because your following is going to jump by 5,000 in a month and your engagement's not going to follow. People are going to start saying you bought followers. Brands are going to know you bought followers. That kind of will spread around the industry. And there is just so much bad that will happen that it could never counterbalance the good in allowing a tiny, tiny percentage of your audience to be able to swipe up on something in Insta Stories. There are other ways to get links to people. Obviously, you can use one of those things in bio that like has the articles and is pointing people to what you were talking about. You can also have people DM you. If you're under 10K, just say, hey, DM me if you want a link to this. I'll DM it to you. Or run a poll and say, do you want a link to this? And go through everyone who said yes and DM them the link. Like there are other ways to get that information to people than buying followers for a swipe up. I think there's another point of just like cheating begets cheating, right? And like, I think if you look at most criminals, the way it probably started is like something small that they got away with and then kept getting away with, and then a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger and a little bit more. And I think once you buy the followers to get the swipe up and then you say, shit, I'm not growing anymore. And I feel like I just need to get to 20K and I'm at 18. And you say, okay, I'm gonna buy 2K more. And then, it just like, it becomes a thing that you do and it pollutes you and you can never look people in the eye and say, I haven't bought followers. And I think that like integrity is so important in just like in your life. And it's incredibly important for me and for our employees. And if you lose your integrity, well, you can't really get that back. And you can try and tell yourself, all the excuses that you want, but like you have just cheated. And that is now going to be a part of your story that you can never erase. if whether it's to get a swipe up or whether it's because you feel frustrated because you're not growing, if you're at a point where you're willing to cheat to try and get ahead, I think that like the space is turned toxic for you, and it's time to step away. Because if you're at 5,000 followers and you're thinking about buying followers to get ahead and to change your prospects, like it's not worth it. And I would argue that like your relationship with the space has soured, and it's time to step back or step away. Because if you start having that unhealthy relationship with it, it gets bad really quickly. I mean, I don't know who saw Christina Caradona, who's been a friend of the company's for a long time, and she's moving to Paris, and she did an IGTV. If you haven't seen it, you should. And it was short and very simple, but she was talking about how she's kind of lost her passion for the space, and how she would try and reinvigorate herself and focus on it, and that would happen for a couple months, and then she would kind of lose interest again. And I think that if this is going to be your job, and if your relationship with it turns toxic, like Quigley said it in the last episode as well, right? If you start having a bad relationship with your art, like it can ruin you. And that's what happened to her with singing. Like, it's okay to step away and be like, this isn't for me anymore. It is turning me into a person that I don't recognize, a person that cheats to get more followers, to be seen in a different way. Like, it's not worth it. In lieu of question number 3, because I've already talked for 30 minutes, we are going to cut to our chief fashion correspondent on the street, Tim Jeffries, who is giving us a look at what Fashion Week looks like.
Tim Jeffries, senior fashion correspondent for Drink with James here. Really excited to bring you something new this week on Drink with James. Unfortunately, we can't bring it to you via a podcast because it's a video portion. So if you want to check it out, go to YouTube, check it out. I hit the streets, the New York Fashion Week streets. We went to the Tom Ford show. We went to the Coach show. We saw all the celebrities, got all the hard-hitting interviews. I said what's up to my boy Ansel Elgort. We interviewed influencers. We wanted to give folks that haven't been to New York Fashion Week a taste of what it's actually like at Fashion Week. No, we didn't go to the shows, but guess what? Most people don't get into shows anyway, so it's about that experience outside the show, and we kind of bring you that vibe, bring you that energy, show you how crazy it is. So head over to YouTube to watch it. I think you'll like it. I think you'll enjoy it. I think you'll have some laughs, and maybe let us know what you think. Back to you, James.
That's it for this week. As always, send your questions, comment on YouTube, comment on Instagram, send us a DM, send us an email, send me a bottle of whiskey with a card in it that has a question. If you've never asked a question, this is the time. Send us a question. See you next week.